Whether you're a fan of lightweight sports cars, expert bug killers, or recursive acronyms, you probably already know that the Miata is the car for everyone that's shopping for a new car. But let's talk about the realities of living with the 2022 Mazda MX-5 Grand Touring. What it does well, what it doesn't, the drive, the exterior, the interior, and the standard features. Let's take a look. Now, while in general I do believe that if you can't have fun in a Miata, you're probably either too tall or you're lying to yourself, there are definitely some pros and cons. And the biggest con, of course, is the size. If you're tall at all, your head's going to be sticking out the top. You're going to be pretty cramped up to the steering wheel. We do have a tilting telescoping steering wheel, but still, you're not going to have a whole lot of room to go. And there are only 2 seats. If you have more than one passenger, you're not taking this car. There are 2 storage compartments in here, one behind the driver's seat and one in the middle, and a 6 cubic foot trunk. Not a whole lot of space. You're either kicking your passenger out or you're just leaving whatever it is at home most of the time. But of course, the size is also what makes it so good. Mazda has really stripped out anything that's not necessary. They want to make it safe, but they want to make it a driver's car, and they've done that here. The tilting telescoping wheel I mentioned is manual, manually adjustable seats, manual handbrake, manual transmission, of course, is a necessity. The only safety systems we really have are, well, the airbags, of course. We've got blind spot monitoring standard, which is good because the visibility is not awesome, and the blind spot monitoring is pretty aggressive. Even if you're pretty far past someone, if you hit that turn signal on the highway, it's going to beep at you and let you know that there's somebody there. The visibility is really only bad with the top up, though. With the top up, you basically have a pinhole in the back between the seats, and your blind spot here is huge. But of course, with the top down, that's not an issue. And now up front, the visibility is perfectly fine, but for some reason there are more bugs on this front windshield than any car I've ever driven before. I don't know what it is about this car that just attracts bugs. And of course, because it is so small, it is so lightweight, it's just over 2,300 pounds. The next closest thing would be the Toyota 86 and the BRZ, which are 450 pounds heavier, and they don't handle quite as well. They're also not quite as refined. We've got a 91-inch wheelbase, rear drive, throw it into a corner and this thing is happy. Only makes 181 horsepower, 159 pound-feet of torque, and that's just for the ND2 generation. So after that mid-cycle refresh in this ND generation, the fourth generation, when it got the bigger engine, that 181 horsepower doesn't hit till $7 grand, with the red line up at 7,500. Your peak torque, 159, is at $4 grand. And with these nice short gears, you really get to wring it out. Of course, it's still not considered fast by any means, but it's perfectly fast enough. And it's just so fun to wring out all the gears. And the power delivery is pretty consistent all the way through. Another note about the handling is we do have a limited slip differential. Since this is the Grand Touring, the club also gets a limited slip differential, but it is not in the Sport. And new for this year, they've added something called Kinematic Posture Control, or KPC. Just sounds like marketing speak to me. But what that does is it applies a little bit of braking to the inside wheel when you're cornering really hard, and it'll help keep some of that body roll to a minimum. Now, I mentioned the manual transmission. Of course, you can get an automatic transmission, but that is only in the Grand Touring. That is not available in the Sport or in the Club. You do lose a few things with that. You lose the limited slip differential, you lose the sport tune suspension, probably going to lose a couple of friends, and you kind of lose the soul of this car. It's just such a good manual transmission. If you're looking at a Miata, you have to get the manual. The clutch is definitely on the lighter side, and if you've seen any of my other videos, you know that I prefer a heavier clutch. But if I had to have a light clutch, it would be a Mazda clutch, because they manage to do a light clutch very well. They can actually, it's actually still communicative, and you can really easily find the bite point. So as an overall experience, that's why Miata gets recommended so much. The light clutch makes it easy to learn on. Manual transmission makes it such a good manual. The fact that it doesn't have a lot of power, but it's so lightweight, makes it handle like a dream, while also just being able to wring it out and not really getting yourself into too much trouble. It's got just enough safety features to keep you going, and it's comfortable enough to daily drive. The Sport Tune suspension, it is a little bit rough on some of the bumps, but for something so low, something you have to climb down into like this, it really is not gonna beat you up too much. And I forgot to mention the heated seats because it's a nice sunny day out here, and I definitely don't need those. That's only in the Grand Touring. No cooled seats, unfortunately. One thing to note about this knob system going on with the buttons and knobs down here for the infotainment, that actually this is a touchscreen. I didn't realize until this time around. I've been in a few Mazdas now with this, but this is a touchscreen. It's just while you're driving you have to use the knobs. You can use the knobs when you're not driving, obviously, but the touchscreen is disabled while you're driving because Mazda says that's safer. I don't necessarily agree, because I feel like at least here I'm kind of looking forward. Here I can kind of feel my way around, but at the same time it just seems like I'm so used to a touchscreen at this point, I'd rather just touch. And if you want to heel toe your downshifts, of course the pedal box is nice and tight. They couldn't actually spread it out anymore, or you'd have to get rid of the dead pedal. Your left foot would just be resting on the clutch all the time. As far as the exterior goes, we've got a new color for this here called Platinum Quartz Metallic, but Soul Red is still the color you want. Our classic Miata smile up front here has eaten more bugs than anything I've ever driven, despite being so small, but the smile is flanked by LED headlights and LED daytime running lights. Headlights are also adaptive up here in this Grand Touring trim. We're sitting pretty on 17s wrapped in Summers with body colored mirrors in this trim as well. A retractable hardtop is an option, but this one here has the manual soft top. Super quick and easy to remove. What I've been doing is driving around town with the top off. I come to a light, about to get on the highway, pop the top back on real quickly. And the back of this toy car here sees dual exhaust underneath it, LED taillights, and a measly 6 cubic feet of trunk space. The interior adds a couple of small storage compartments, 2 heated leather seats in the Grand Touring trim, though this year you can actually add terracotta Napa leather for an extra $300. A 7-inch infotainment system works as a touchscreen only when stopped and not while using the wired Android Auto. There is also wireless CarPlay. You'll have to use the knobs and buttons for that, which does get a little bit frustrating when you're trying to navigate through some of these menus. We're hooked into a Bose sound system, which I'm usually all for, but the noise level is a bit much to really hear anything too well. It is a ragtop sports car, so that's kind of to be expected. The gauge cluster does have a small adjustable area off to the side, and I love the big analog tack in the middle next to the simple analog speedometer. The fairly sparse cabin keeps things simple and driver focused for the most part, just the way it should be. So as far as affordable sports cars go, or expensive bug killers, however you want to look at it, this thing kind of looks like a toy, it drives like a toy, it's a blast whether you want it to be your daily driver, as long as you don't have to haul a lot of stuff, or you just want a weekend fun toy, or you wanted to take it to the track. Though if you're going to take it to the track, I would probably recommend getting the club trim. Hopefully I can get into one of those. Comment below if you want to see me try to get into one of those, but it's pretty obvious to me that this is still the king. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.